Hey, how's it going? Today we're talking about a short Ray Bradbury story that was actually included in the 80s radio series Bradbury 13. And I was going to review that one, but when I was researching it, I realized that this story wasn't just adapted from one of his short stories. Actually, he had written a short story about it, but originally he had written this story as a radio show for Suspense. In 1948, Ray Bradbury wrote The Screaming Woman as an episode of Suspense Theater. The plot centers around a young girl who is playing when all of a sudden she notices muffled screams coming up from the dirt at her feet. She goes and tries to tell parents that she believes that there's a screaming woman who's been buried alive, but of course, her father thinks that she's just playing around. No one takes her seriously. She tries getting the help of another young child to help her dig, and he just kind of thinks that it's a ventriloquist trick. And he eventually gets tired and he leaves too. She finally settles on going house to house to ask, is anyone missing from your home? And this is a good way to find the person that's missing, but it also ends up putting her directly in the clutches of the person responsible for this crime. So yeah, it's a really interesting story. There's slight differences between the one that is in Bradbury 13 and the one that was put on Suspense. I believe the acting is a little better on the one in Suspense. There's just minor plot points that they changed. In the episode of Suspense, there's probably a tinge more of a confrontation in the ending, but most of these stories, this wouldn't be the first time that Ray Bradbury kind of plays around with the idea of either what would be someone trying to get away with a murder in a small town or a serial killer in a small town. One of the other episodes that he does in Bradbury 13 is from his story, The Ravine, which is of a similar note, but it's young girls walking home, taking a shortcut through the ravine, but they're worried about getting caught by the creep. And all of these kind of small town, uh, taken in grips by a murder taking place or a killer, they generally have a more of a positive ending for Ray Bradbury, but there's always a lot of dark suspense leading up to it. It's a very interesting story. I think you should check it out. It's definitely a little more cut and dry than his science fiction stuff. But if you want to hear something that was written before his first novel, The Martian Chronicles, and that was actually something that he wrote intended to be a radio play, Suspense, check it out. The episode, The Screaming Lady.